Hub Arkush is one of the most well-known guys in our industry, Associated Press, professional football. Hub's been doing this, I think, since Red Grange was born. At least it feels that way sometime with Hub. And Hub gets into a little bit of a back and forth with Aaron Rodgers when they're discussing the possibility of Aaron Rodgers being the MVP of the league, and Hub is a voter for all that. So Hub comes out and he calls Aaron Rodgers, he calls him a jerk and a bad guy. Microphones catch it. Everybody goes off. Rodgers goes off and spits back at Hub Arkush. Hub now comes out after the public backlash. He said it. He knew what he was saying in front of everybody. He's not a stupid man. Then it comes out, he's got to write the column. I made a terrible mistake. Completely my fault. No one else to blame. You know what this is, guys? I love Hub Arkush to death. I've interviewed him a million times. But he's basically saving his ass. Because he knows that if he says something like this and Aaron Rodgers snaps back at him, all of a sudden other players aren't going to talk to him. His locker room access will change. But at the end, wasn't he right? I mean, he came out and said it because of all the Rodgers and the COVID-19 issues and all of the propaganda that Rodgers has spread. And Sam, to your point, where we're talking about character and things that make up voting, this is a guy who wasn't a good teammate. He tossed his team aside basically to make a statement about COVID-19 and basically spit on his team. So what Hub was saying was, you're not an MVP if you do that because you don't care about the team. I think Hub was right. I think Hub should have just stood on the damn thing. Don't apologize because you said it. And I believe he nailed it the first time out.
But he didn't say, I don't think he said it correctly. You can't say the guy's the biggest jerk in the league and that's why I'm not voting.
Right. He got caught off mic.
Yeah. I mean, if he said, hey, the guy let his team down and that to me is one of the criteria, then I'm not voting for him. That's a whole other thing. But, I mean, think back to 1941. Ted Williams at 406, right? It went 4 for 6 in that doubleheader in the last. He could have sat and hit 401.
Right.
Instead, he plays. He does not win the MVP. Why? Because both Boston writers of the Baseball Writers Association of America, who have the votes, did not list Ted Williams in their top 10. Right? It's a 10-point voting system. If either of them lists them anywhere, he wins the MVP. He does not win it. Why? Because they hated the guy. Okay, he was vilified by the press. Was that right? Absolutely wrong. But this is not the first time that a player's personality and his dealings with other people have come into awards or any other kind of situation. It shouldn't happen, but it does.
Well, there's two things here then, guys. And this is a long argument. MVP playing a sporting event. Should the voters carry what he does off the field? Now, remembering, of course, that in this case specifically, by not playing, he hurts the team. So he did something off the field, but he still hurt the team. So shouldn't that become part of the MVP voting?
Well, the problem is that they don't have the criteria isn't there. So it's basically you're dealing with a bit of a gray area and a nebulous area that you could apply it if you want to. You don't apply it if you don't want to. It really is up to the discretion of the individual. And that's what we saw here. And you're right. He should have owned it. He said it. He should have owned it. And he didn't, and he caved. And it's embarrassing, frankly. But I think that what they should do in all of these cases is there some sort of clause there that you can, one way or another, that off the field or character issues or however you want to phrase it, does or does not come into the criteria of this voting procedure.
Yeah, because isn't it fair to say that every time that we mention character, your idea of character is different from mine, is different from everybody else's. So if we're going to say vote on character, holy spit in the morning. I mean, you couldn't do it. I mean, you could have somebody, and I hate to do this, but I'm going to make this point. You could have somebody who could say for Aaron Rodgers, he's exactly right. The vaccine doesn't work. It's propaganda. The United States government is forcing us to wear masks. And to get this, it's an experimental drug. So good for him for standing up and having the character to do that, to be a leader, when 75% of America knows that's bullshit. So, but if it's a voter who says it, don't we have to then say, we gave him the right? So it's an impossible thing to do, George.
No, I agree, and at least if you have some criteria in place, yes, we all have different standards of which we judge people, but at least it narrows the field down, if you will, whether you can apply this stuff or not based on your criteria. So he did it kind of on a nebulous thing, saying, "Hey, I'm going to take character into account." And we talk about the COVID thing, but let's also remember the off season where he was jerking everybody around and whether he was going to come back or not. And
Good point.
it was all about him. It certainly wasn't about his team. It was all about him, and that's how Rodgers has been throughout. And this, we've been in thousands of locker rooms, right? Met thousands of athletes, and this is the big lie that gets exposed. You can be a great player, a great talent, and be a big jerk or an
and
asshole.
be a jerk, which
Yeah.
is, if you talk to some of the players, he is. I mean, and
the first time this came up on a major scale in my career was when Lawrence Taylor was the first year eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And there was a lot of discussion about that. I mean, we talked about him forever. By the way, somebody surreptitiously recorded that meeting, and I know that for a fact because the next day I was quoted perfectly in the New York Post. But the next year, one of the voters who's no longer with us stood up before the meeting started. They're banging the gavel and stuff, and he looked around and he said, "Listen, if I find which one of you MFers recorded that, I'm going to effing kill you." Okay. I thought you guys know this guy very well, but so after that vote, and Lawrence Taylor got in, and that's once this committee speaks, all right, he's a Hall of Famer. But after that, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, as George said, very clearly clarified whether on or off field things can be a part of it. And they said between the white lines extends only to the locker room. Okay.
Hey.
And so the locker room counts as between the white lines, which means what kind of teammate you are. And that, but anything else, arrests, you name
Right.
it, whatever, none of that can be a part of it. So when you see, at least the Pro Football Hall of Fame has clearly defined that character only as it relates to your teammates is one of the criteria for election.
Okay, so if we take that again, this is not a Hall of Fame election we're talking about. This is an MVP.
Right. MVP.
But let's go ahead and use that as the same criteria, extending to the locker room. Despite the fact that his decision was an off-field activity, it still had an immediate impact on the team, the chemistry of the team, the locker room, if you will, the fans, the wins, the losses. So in essence, Hub Arkush can call him a jerk and a bad guy, but I think that you have to take his COVID-19 status into account as whether or not he is an MVP. Joey, it speaks to the team is what this is about, and he screwed with the team. George's point is well taken, too. He screwed with the team in the offseason over his contract, but we can't hold that into account because that's not the field. Oh, wait a minute, but it's the locker room. So can we hold it there?
Here's the ironic thing. The Packers are the number one seed in the NFC. Everything will have to go through Lambeau Field. So what actually happened to that team? Not much, in my opinion. They're still the number one seed in the NFC, and they have a great chance of going to the Super Bowl. To me, it's either Rodgers or Brady for the MVP, and I could certainly make a great argument for Brady. You take Brady off the Bucs, and they're not any kind of Super Bowl contender, I don't believe. I personally don't have a problem voting Rodgers for MVP despite all that he has done, because I would view it more through the prism of what has happened on the field.
Okay, let me take it there. Do we then take it one step further? While we take his COVID-19 status and how it affected the team and the fact he wasn't there and wasn't able to play, yet They're still the number one seed in the NFC right now, heading to
Yeah.
the playoffs. Do we not have to say, as any voter would have to, that, yeah, he was a good teammate because look what he did. He brought the team together despite how he did it, but he did it. So I know, but
You know,
it's
maybe you argue with that, but
we're hashing hairs here. I know.
I think as interesting and colorful as this issue was a couple of months ago, I think it's kind of become rendered moot with the way things have turned out. I think the Packers could very well win the Super Bowl and be in the Super Bowl, and Rodgers could be the MVP. So despite all the histrionics that we were going through a couple of months ago, to me it's out the window.
Well, then let's close it out with this thing then from the three of you. Hub Arkush, whom I certainly know and respect, should he have issued an apology for what he said? Personally, I don't think so. You said it, it was caught, stand on it. But he's doing this now because he wants to make sure that Rodgers talks to him, the Packers talk to him, players in the NFL talk to him. He's backing up. Was it the right thing to back up? Sam, I'll throw it to you first.
I think he should have said that he realizes that that's not part of the equation from the MVP, but I don't think he needed to issue that kind of apology. Remember, there are players now who are fully vaccinated and boosted who are ineligible to play because they've tested positive. So the league has changed their protocols. My problem with Rodgers wasn't whether he was vaccinated or not, is that he was disingenuous about it, and then he broke the rules, which at the time required him to wear a mask if he was unvaccinated, and he did not. Now, whether that works or not is up for debate, but those were the rules, and he broke all those rules, and he was, as I said, kind of untruthful about his status. So, as Joey said, the whole NFL protocol has changed now. I mean, there are teams without 25. Look at what happened with the Saints 2 weeks ago on that Monday night game. I mean, they had guys who were driving a truck Thursday who started on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So,
George, to you then on Hub Arkush, right or wrong?
He's wrong. He should have not caved. He should have stood by what he said. And it's just so weak to be able to just say one thing and then just cave the next day. Stand by what you believe. I mean, that's obviously what he believes in. So why the fact that Rodgers called him a bum, all of a sudden he's cowering in the corner there?
It's a court of public opinion. It came out, it got splashed across social media, and Hub's got to save his ass. So it's in the era of social media, I think it's almost become de rigueur that you have to do that. If social media wasn't around today, I don't think Hub would have said an extra word.
No.
But then again, we might not have known in the first place that he called him a jerk and a bad guy.
Exactly. So it's just bad. But he's right. He's right in what he said, and we can. There was in regards to this particular voting mechanism, like Sam noted, it's different for the Hall of Fame. There is no criteria. So maybe the fix is as best as possible is to establish whether character counts or not.
Look, if you're going to be a commentator, if you're going to write, comment and stick with it.
Yep.
Joey on Hub, what say you?
Yeah, stick with it. Stand by your guns. You could also not take this stance. Be just be under the radar with how you're going to vote. You don't necessarily have to put it out there. Put your opinion out there. Just do your vote. You don't. Everybody doesn't have to know every possible angle of what you're thinking when you're voting.
What? This is 2022, young man. What's wrong with you?
Sorry. I think you can be measured and professional about it, and not say bad guy, good guy, and on every possible thing. But again, that's the world in which we're living. And you're right about social media is the brave stance that some people take sometimes when social media unleashes upon them. They tend to cower. So it's a different world we're living in.
If you guys,
I hope to wrap this up. I was going to say, to wrap this up, I hope that the Packers sign Antonio Brown. And then we're moving on. We're moving on from that topic.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that if you're a Heisman voter,
Wait a minute, Antonio Brown is here, ladies and gentlemen. So we bring him in for giggles. Go ahead, Sam.
When they send you your ballot for the Heisman, about 5 years ago, they specifically put on there, do not post who you voted for or why on social media until the thing is announced, because there's all kinds of things going on, people trying to figure out who's going to win. But
Right.
My curiosity, Ed, is what happens to Hub in his career. I think he's done.
Oh, see, I don't.
I think his bosses may decide that they're not willing to put up with that kind of public backlash.